We all know it is important to be a good speaker, but do we also know that it is very important to be a good reader? We read a lot of novels, we read the newspaper, we read a report, we are reading a particular script, and why are we doing that? Reading can be done for pleasure, reading can be done for information, it can be done for preparation of further speaking, or it can be done to persuade somebody, or reading can also be done simply for the sake of gaining some facts and some figures that remain in your mind. Whereas reading is a complex process because it is concerned with the mind, the memory, the retention, but it is not as complex as we make it. If a person reads with a relaxed state of mind, the reading becomes effective and the reading becomes impressive as well. And the reading starts yielding results. Reading can be done extensively or intensively. Extensively, where we are doing a vast amount of reading, where the content is too large, where we will not probably go into all the details that are mentioned, or we would not give all our attention to that. That will be, for example, a big thick novel that you read. And intensive reading would be something like a report or a thesis that we prepare, and we concentrate on every word, what is written there, and because that means something or that is important for us. So intensive and extensive reading styles are the two general styles which help us read well. Whereas reading, what is it actually? Reading is definitely a process of communication, and reading is the interpretation, the evaluation and the interpretation of the given word. That is what reading is. You first read a particular word, you evaluate what is it, and then you start interpreting it. Now, reading as a process follows a particular path where we read a particular message, and after receiving that message, we start decoding it, we start evaluating the message, we start after the evaluation of it, we start preparing a response to it, and then comes the feedback. Like the process of any other process of communication, it is very much based on the feedback. Feedback is a very important part of good communication. So after this kind of reading, people generally have a problem, and they generally face a trouble when it comes to good reading. They are unable to concentrate. There are so many distractions around. You start visualizing the content. It is generally said that a good reader will read around 200 to around 250 to 300 words per minute, and with 90% comprehension, whereas an average reader would read around 250 to 500 words per minute with only 70% comprehension, and a poor reader will read as many as 800 words per minute with only 50% comprehension. So what is important? Only reading speed? What is important? Only reading the words, or also comprehending them? Along with reading, there is something that the mind does. It either visualizes, or it stores a particular word in your mind, or it connects you with some memory, or it actually makes you go down the memory lane, or it gives you a future prospect towards something, whatever it may be. So this kind of reading is result oriented, and this kind of reading, good reading, should have good comprehension style also. So in order to be a good reader, I have a few tactics of reading that might help you become a better reader, depending upon the kind of reading that you're doing, whether it's for pleasure, whether it's for a purpose, whether it's for an information purpose, whatever it may be. Now, the first technique of reading is called the SQ3R. The SQ3R tactic. The SQ3R tactic, it sounds very technical, but it is very simple. The first S here stands for survey. Survey. Before we actually start reading, we need to know, why was this content given to us? What was told to us by the teacher? Go home and go through that particular novel, and why? What was the reason behind it? Before you actually start reading the novel, just go through a little bit of background of it, or just kind of formulate a viewpoint about that particular novel, so that it becomes easy for you to get the hang of it eventually. The first S, survey. Then Q, question. What will I do? What will I do at the end of the novel? Will I be able to solve this query of mine? Will I be able to give a proper reply in the class? Or will I be able to solve the mysteries that have been told to us? Or will I be able to perform well in my exams? Question. And while reading, you question yourself, underline, and you make the most important notes of the lines or the meanings or the sentences or the title, for example, and you question yourself. You start formulating questions on your own while reading the particular whatever piece of writing it may be. And then is read. Start reading. But not just read, read and comprehend. Read and visualize. Read and understand. Don't go very fast. Read very, very thoroughly. Read in detail. Underline whatever is important, and also question to yourself. If this is important, this kind of a question can come related to this particular fact or a figure. And then after reading, what do? You recite. You read out aloud. Recitation is something that disturbs other people, but that's very, very effective for you, because if you read out loudly, you tend to remember the things better. You tend to put in more concentration. Other things don't distract you much. The noises that come from around do not distract you much, and therefore it becomes more effective while you're reading a particular piece of writing. And then is revise. Before any examination, you must have seen that once you read, then you recite. After that, there is a revision time that is given to you. Revision, it actually brings you back to the piece of writing. You read whatever you have underlined, you read the questions that you have formulated, you go through the details, and that refreshes your memory. So this refreshment of memory is very, very important and effective, and revision actually makes you remember most of the things that your mind must have otherwise forgotten, because mind cannot retain everything that you read. So this is just one tactic and one way in which we can improve our reading skills. And then we have another tactic through which we can improve our reading. That is, again, that sounds very, very technical. That is the ERRQ technique. ERRQ technique in technical writing. E here stands for estimate. Estimate what the text will be like. Just evaluate what the text is going to be like. How is it going to be a mysterious text, or probably if you have been given a topic to work on, suppose the topic is something related to cinema and novels, start estimating what all is the report going to be like. How many movies will I have to watch? How many novels will I have to go through? And start estimating so that you have a fair idea of whatever the written content is going to be like. How are you going to go reading that particular text? Then is read. Read the text, read it out loudly, read it in detail. Once again, underline whatever is important, question yourself, and then formulate a fair idea about whatever you have read. And then the second is respond. Respond to your own questions. Start answering your own questions. For example, if you have read a particular report, and the report is concerned with the marketing strategy of a particular company, and you have been underlining that these are the methods through which the marketing strategy was implied or marketing was made better of a particular product, you question yourself, and then after questioning yourself, you start responding, you start answering those questions as well. And in the end, questions for yourself, questions that you have made, and also in the end, questions that yield result. Question not only in the middle of the text, but after you finish reading, question yourself, was I able to achieve my aim? And you will have the answer. Was I able to figure out the most important parts in the text? Was I able to find out the climax that was there, the turning point? Was I able to figure out what changes are going to be made in my future reading or my future writing? So that is very important. So the ERRQ technique also helps you become a better reader. And then now I have a few more ways and tactics again to read better, and they are slightly different from the ones that we've just done. The first is called labeling. Labeling helps a person to remember the context. You know, when you label a particular thing, for example, when you when you have a big folder or a big file and you want to remember something, what do you put? You put labels on that, no? The pink and the green and the yellow color little slips that we get. You write something, you put a label for yourself and you remember it. So labeling is very helpful when it comes to particular reading. And then there's another kind of technique that is called skimming. Skimming, as the word says, the skimmed milk. What does the skimmed milk do to you? The skimmed milk takes out all the fat and gives you the most important nutrients that are required to be in the milk, and you do not put on weight if you drink that skimmed milk, but you get the essential nutrients. So skimming is also very, very essential for the executives that work in the offices, for the people working in the offices who have big files which they need to read. Skimming is basically looking for the most important keywords that are required by you. You do not read the whole document. You are figuring out the most important diagrams, the keywords, the example that only you need to require or that are required by you for a particular event or for a particular project or whatever it may be. So skimming is a very important process and generally used, extensively used in the offices. Then is scanning. Scanning is something like, what does a scanning machine do? It scans the entire document and gives you a photocopy, kind of a photocopy to you. Now scanning is again very important for people who are big executives who are generally reading a newspaper. When you read a newspaper, you do a lot of scanning. You don't want to miss out on the important headlines, but you don't go into the detail of it. So you know, you will open up the business page, you will read the headlines, you will pick up a fact or two, then you'll move on to the entertainment page, you will pick up the major headlines, and then you will move on to the current affairs, and steadily you have all the facts that you have read, but they may not be detailed, but you have a fair idea about all the facts. So scanning is another very, very important process of reading. And then we have sampling. Sampling is a very smart technique, I would say. You go to the bookshop, you pick up a novel, you feel like reading a novel, you pick up a novel, you read the blurb of it, you read the last page of it, you read the abstract, you read the introduction, you read a few reviews written by a few people, and you feel that yes, I want to read this novel, it seems interesting. And that is what sampling is. You read something, you read all the details related to that particular document, probably the summaries related to that document, and then you eventually read it at your own leisure time. But this is what sampling is. And this is after sampling. Then we have studying. Studying includes all the techniques that we have previously discussed. It includes the ERRQ technique, it includes the SQ3R technique, and when we study something, it means that we are not missing on any word, any sentence, any important detail of the document, and that comes only if we study strategically. As I just mentioned to you, the ERRQ technique or the SQ3R technique that can be followed. Here we do not use skimming or we do not use scanning, and that is how studying is helpful when we need to do a detailed survey of whatever we are reading. And then now I would like to discuss in the end how to improve your reading skills. Reading is only improved by reading. There is no substitute for reading, of course, but then reading in a vague manner is not going to help you. Reading strategy wise, as I just mentioned, the few tactics of good reading can be helpful for you. The second is read challenging material. Don't read anything and everything. Why just concentrate yourself on the entertainment page, whereas we know that the current affairs are also important. The edit page is very, very important. So read challenging material. Also after that, read materials related to topics commonly used in the MBA courses, commonly used in management courses, commonly used in the tests that one clears to go abroad, for example, the TOEFL or the IELTS or whatever it may be. Read changing vocabulary. The vocabulary today is changing extensively. We used to use words as you know, some line that has now become redundant, something like last but not the least. Now last but not the least is not used now. It has been changed, you know, to the more newer vocabulary or to the more relevant and a newer approach. And also read the material critically. Don't just read for the sake of reading it. Evaluate it, form an opinion about it. There is no point reading something without forming an opinion. Read carefully, read with a relaxed state of mind, read as if it is not a burden to you, and read critically, so that in the end you can form an opinion about it, you can write something about it on your own, and you are eventually doing a good job. So that is it, and happy reading to all of you. Thank you.